I'm the Irish guy, and what year do you wish you were born? Because me, I kind of wish I didn't exist in a time where Lady Gaga howls at me through the radio. But listen, lads, there are some footballers who belong in another generation. I'm going to take a look at every Premier League club and find the one player whose career could be saved if they were born in a different era. What year should they have been born? Right, let's go. Arsenal, Kai Havertz, 1991. Look, Kai Havertz might look like your modern day typical posh brat who looks like he combs his eyebrows with a £30,000 brush. But I will say this. He should have been born in 1991, not 1999 when The Matrix came out. No, I know it's only 8 years, but trust me, those 8 years are important. Lads, the false line position was only really coming into mainstream football around 2010. Back when Spain were chucking Cesc Fabregas up front, can you imagine a 21-year-old Havertz breaking into that mouth-watering Bayer Leverkusen team, which finished second in the Bundesliga in 2011, learning under a manager in Jupp Heynckes, who was just 2 or 3 years away from lifting the treble, playing in a dressing room surrounded by monster midfield personalities like Michael Ballack, Toni Kroos, Arturo Vidal. I mean, it's a bit better than being in a WhatsApp group with pansies like Mason Mount. That was an era where Walking Low tried to play with a false nine with Germany. Havertz would be lifting the World Cup at 23, absolutely ripping Brazil to shreds on their own turf. Can you imagine a Havertz linking up with Mesut Ozil? Sure, both blokes are lazier than Susan Boyle at the gym, just, sitting in the corner, having unplugged the treadmill to instead just tuck into a family bucket of chocolate ice cream on the floor. But the footwork could have been off the charts. From around 2010 to 2015, false nine strikers were even more fashionable than One Direction haircuts. Right now, Havertz's best position is sort of outdated. But 10 years ago, I could have seen Bayern Munich buying Havertz, not Mario Götze. And I'm sorry, but 3 years of learning under Pep Guardiola, this German meatball would be one of the most perfect, complete forwards in the world. But instead, because his mummy at the South she get pregnant 7 years later, oh no, instead he's just an awkward spare part. Aston Villa Matty Cash 1957. Okay, this is strange, but lads, right now Matty Cash is an exciting, explosive right back who plays for Aston Villa and weirdly Poland. No, this man is your typical old-fashioned right midfielder. Part of me thought maybe he could be born in an era where it would be him, not David Bentley, tipped to be Beckham's handsome heir on the England right wing. But now I'll go for him to be born in the 50s, back in the Elvis Presley era. He'd have come through in Nottingham Forest, yeah, but in an era where foreign transfers were extremely rare, where most teams were homegrown, Cash would have been part of Brian Clough's Forest squad, which lifted 2 European Cups back to back. But you know what the crazy thing is? If you offered Cash that legacy, but it would mean that he'd been paid a pittance compared to what he's on now. Oh, I think he would chuck the Clough memories and Champions League medals in a bin to keep that big fat Range Rover $1 million mansion. How sad is that? Bournemouth, Tyler Adams, 1980. Tyler Adams is unlucky. Yes, he's currently the captain of the United States, becoming the youngest American captain since 1950. But let's be real, the USA are a bang average nation at the minute. Tyler Adams is 24, and yeah, he's an injury-riddled cookie wallowing in the Bournemouth treatment room. But imagine if he was born in 1980, the same year the 5th Star Wars film was released. It would mean that his early 20s would coincide with the USA golden generation. He would be playing in midfield for a USA side, which reached the World Cup quarterfinals in 2002, and the last 16 in 2010 and 2014. After exploding as a 22-year-old star at the 2002 World Cup, he would probably have got a big fat European move to someone like Tottenham, an exciting team trying to qualify for the Champions League. I mean, it's a bit better than being a forgotten cheerleader in annual relegation scraps. Brentford Ben Mee 1979. Look, Ben Mee has had a decent career, but I am sorry, in an era of managers wanting their centre-backs to be able to play with the ball on the deck, in a generation of fancy ball-playing centre-halves who probably model their games on David Luiz, despite him often being prone to defending like a constipated guarded gnome, then the likes of Ben Mee, yeah, he's not really going to get any higher than the level of a Brentford or a Burnley. But let's say he was born in the 70s. He would have come through at Manchester City before they became the richest club in the world. I mean, what chance did an 18-year-old me have at the Eddie had when they were chucking £30 million of fancy new centre backs? But if he was born in 1979, he would have come through the academy, broken into the City first team in 1998. He would have been an ever-present for them over the next 10 years, being an absolute rock alongside Richard Dunn. He would have just been your old-fashioned British centre half. This is a man who would have around 400 City appearances to his name before, yeah, eventually being sold, with Sheikh Mansour looking at me as if he was staring at a chunk of cat poo in his sock. He'd have probably been snapped up by Everton. I mean, the top of tried to get Michael Richards in a swap deal for Julian Lescott. That didn't happen, so maybe Moyes would have wanted me instead. No one ever wants me. Honestly, Man City and Everton, that's a better career than Burnley and Brentford, right? Brighton, Ansu Fati, 1990. I don't know Ansu Fati, but I'd imagine that kid would happily bite off his own thumb if it meant he could be born in 1990, not 2002. This is an absolute wonderful megastar winger, but lads, this is a kid who happened to emerge to Barcelona's academy just when that club were about to enter their biggest financial crisis ever. I know they somehow managed to piece it together to somehow afford Lewandowski and win the league last season, but come on, Barcelona have been an absolute joke shop for years. Fati has been injury prone, yeah, probably because that club can't afford afford proper physios. The club doctors are probably just former hotel cleaners who fraudulently printed off their medical degrees off the internet. Fadi actually came through at Sevilla before being snapped up by La Masia in 2012. But what if Barca got their paws on him in 2000? In a year where he was 10. Not -2. He would have been a 17-year-old superstar in 2008 when Pep Guardiola was molding the best team in the world. He'd very quickly have made fellow youngster rival Giovanni Dos Santos look like a big bag of potato cakes. Fadi would have been a lightning fast teen sensation, an emergency substitute for Barcelona and Spain, the two best teams in the world. Fadi would have been a better Pedro. Just incredible pace on that right wing. Fadi would have lifted 3 Champions Leagues in 2008, 2011 and 2015, 2 European Championships and a World Cup with Spain, and would probably have stayed at the Nou Camp for life. There'd be no need to buy Neymar. It would be Messi, Suarez, Fati, MSF. I can just imagine that Fati, after 5 years of learning under Pep Guardiola, he'd be one of the best players in the world. Burnley Josh Brownhill, 850 BC. Football didn't exist back then. Good. Tell him to go and live in a cave, wrestling jaguars for his tea, and trying to create a language based on grunts and coughs. Send Brownhill back to the Flintstone age, because Christ above, the bloke's not a footballer. Chelsea, Marco Cucurella, 1983. Yeah, pretty simple this. Marco Cucurella came through the academies of Espanyol and Barcelona. He was never really given a chance to the Nou Camp, and is now just seen as some expensive bird-brain lump of hair in a Chelsea kit. But just imagine if he was born 15 years earlier. He'd be making his Barcelona debut at left back, aged 18 in 2001, when Barca were in a massive transition phase, finishing 4th, 6th, and then 2nd. But if he was able to establish himself as the #1 left back when there was no real quality competition, he might just have lasted long enough to still be there when they lifted the Champions League in Paris in 2006 under Frank Rijkaard. And considering Guardiola tried to bring him to Man City last year, he clearly rates Cucurella, so who knows, he might have kept him in the treble-winning team. I mean, do you know who started the Champions League final against Man United in Rome? Silvinho, the current boss of Albania, who as a player collected just 6 Brazil caps and was about as awe-inspiring as a plastic bag of your mum's armpit hair. I really do think that Cucurella could have just hung in there, even as a squad player up until they bought Jordi Alba in 2012. Chris Dean Henderson in 1980. Lads, the England goalkeeper position has been a closed shop, fixed position for nearly 8 years now, but between 2003 and 2011, the England goalie spot was majorly up for grabs. Paul Robinson, Rob Green and Scott Carson all let the pressure get to them, doing terrible howlers in net. Babu Capello was even having to swap goalies in the middle of the 2010 World Cup and picking David James for a last 16 game against Germany when he was 40 and 2 weeks off signing for Bristol City. It was utter nonsense. Dean Henderson though, if he was born in 1980, he could have been the original Joe Hart coming through a Carlisle, signing for someone like Tottenham, and yeah, he'd been England #1 for a solid 7 years. Why not? Instead, he's just going to go to his grave with one sad and lonely England cap. Everton, Seamus Coleman, 1971. Seamus Coleman is one of the greatest Irish footballers of all time, and he cost Everton 60 grand, something that KSI probably makes off a try not to laugh video. But sadly, he made his Ireland debut in 2011, representing the nation nearly 70 times, as things got progressively worse year on year. I mean, come on, the most recent spell under Stephen Kenny was more soul-destroying than is sitting through an entire episode of Mrs. Brown Boys. What if Coleman was born in 1971? Forget playing right back. I'm convinced he'd have been an old-fashioned right midfielder for a strong Ireland team who reached the World Cup quarterfinals in 1990 and the last 16 in 1994 and 2002. It would probably be a lot more rewarding of an international career than, you know, senior team losing to Luxembourg at home. Fulham, Willian, 1980. Look, Willian had a pretty decent career at Chelsea, but was it ever a great career? Chelsea weren't ever close to being the best team in the world. He never came within even a mouse's finger of lifting the Champions League. Can you imagine if he was born in 1980 and so was 22 years old at the 2002 World Cup with Brazil? Even just being a backup to Ronaldinho on the bench. Can you imagine what that tournament would have done to his career? The amount of Brazilian players who earned massive transfers off the back of that tournament, like Ronaldinho going to Barcelona, Kaká, Rivaldo and Cafu all moving to AC Milan, Ronaldo joining Real Madrid, Gilberto Silva signing with Arsenal, Cleberson rocking up at Man United. Willian would have taken the place of Ricardinho in the squad, who just signed for Middlesbrough and never played. Did he even exist? And yeah, I just think being part of that squad in a summer where it was so in fashion to just buy from Brazil, he'd have probably got to move to AC Milan too and won a few Champions Leagues. Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold, 1948. Trent Alexander-Arnold is not a right back. He is an old-fashioned right midfielder. I considered making him be born in the 80s, but let's be real, David Beckham would still have kept him out of the England team. So instead, let's make Alexander-Arnold be born in 1948. He would have been a homegrown right-side midfielder, playing alongside Graham Souness, Kenny Dalglish, Mark Lawrenson, with his insane levels of technique. Can you imagine how many assists he'd have provided for Dalglish? He would have been a one-club man. He would have helped England win the '66 World Cup, whipping in balls for Jeff Hurst. He'd have been around to win the Champions League in 1975, 1976, 1981, and maybe maybe 1983 at 37. In that time frame, he'd have also won the league title 7 times and clocked up maybe 200 career assists. He'd be called Sir Alexander-Arnold and would have his pick of pregnant grandmas on the internet. Luton Town, Ross Barkley, 1915. Lads, if Ross Barkley was born over 100 years ago, he would have grown up in an era where footballers could just get away with eating beef burgers and smoking at half time. It was a world where a 41-year-old winger, whose career consisted of Stoke and Blackpool, it was a world where he was winning a Ballon d'Or just 9 years before he turned 50. I would imagine that most players' fitness back then compared to nowadays chuck any of them into a modern pre-season, even somewhere like Norwich, and they would probably vomit up a lung. So yeah, back then, Barkley could eat as many chicken nuggets for breakfast as he wanted. He would still be a superstar. Man City, Calvin Phillips, 1979. Okay, look, Calvin Phillips might now just look like some chubby snowman who's addicted to pies and warming the Man City bench. But this bloke is not fulfilling his potential at all. If he was born in 1979, then Phillips would have been a 19-year-old midfielder breaking into the Leeds team in 1998 when they were exciting. They would go on a run of finishing 5th, 4th, 3rd, 4th and 5th in the Premier League. They were reaching a Champions League semi-final in 2001. Homegrown Phillips would have been part of that. Both he and Alan Smith would have been the faces of the fastest growing team in England. Lads, in the spring of 2001, the club went 13 games unbeaten, finishing just 2 points behind the great Arsenal. If Phillips had had that 5-year run at Leeds before the bubble burst, and when they ran out of money and probably had to ask the lunch ladies just steal chicken from the KFC bin, then Phillips would have been in England squad, learning under Gerrard, Lampard and Beckham. Manchester United bought both Rio Ferdinand and Alan Smith from that exciting Leeds project. I reckon they've got Phillips as well and tried to mould him into being the next Roy Keane. There'd have been no need for Michael Carrick. It would have been Phillips. Honestly, I reckon in another life, Phillips would have been a multiple Premier League champion at Old Trafford. He would have been chosen to play in midfield for England at the 06 World Cup instead of Owen Hargreaves. Surely it would mean he'd be seen as a lead snake and traitor, and his mum would repeatedly probably have pies chucked at her door, but still, Phillips could have been far more than this burger munching oaf that he had. Man United, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, 1970. There are a few other more perfect examples of a footballer being born in the wrong era than Aaron Wan-Bissaka. This man is an unconventional, old-fashioned right-back. He's not there to overlap or whip in spectacular crosses from deep. He is just a one-dimensional defender who probably dreams of tackles in his sleep. He is the perfect example of a 90s defender. So yes, if he was born over 50 years ago and had come through Crystal Palace at the same time as Ian Wright and was part of the FA Cup final reaching team in 1990, he'd have been snapped up Arsenal too, who back then were all about grinding out clean sheets. Would have been first choice England right back for most of the 90s, and he would just be Arsenal's version of Gary Neville. Newcastle, Nick Pope, 1975. Nick Pope is not a modern day goalkeeper. He can barely use his feet, but he is an incredible shot stopper. Like Henderson, if he was just born in another era, he would have been a world-class 90s goalie. If he'd come through his boyhood Ipswich, back when they were playing regular Europa League football, honestly, he would have been coming face to face on a European night with Ronaldo. But honestly, Pope could have got that big move to Liverpool, who needed a goalie in the early 2000s. And who knows, could have been the number 1 in Istanbul. Pope, in another life, would have nearly 100 England caps. Nottingham Forest, Callum Hudson-Odoi, 1980. I don't think Callum Hudson-Odoi has ever really gotten over that Chelsea rejection. But in another life, before that mega money takeover in 2003, I reckon he could have established himself at Stamford Bridge. If he was born in 1980, he would have been a teenage wing whiz kid, breaking into the mid-table Chelsea team in the late 90s, learning and studying under Gianfranco Zola. He would have been modelled as the Italian's heir. And so hopefully by 2003, Hudson-Odoi would have been an established member of Chelsea's team and hailed for the future. But there'd be no need for Damien Duff. It would soon be Iron Robin and Hudson-Odoi on the wings. And in an era where England were desperately short of left wingers, there's such a point where Stuart Downing was earning nearly 40 England caps. Hudson-Odoi would probably have about the same. Honestly, I reckon if Hudson-Odoi had been coached properly, he could have been part of Jose Mourinho's Premier League winning squads. I mean, why not? Sheffield United, Ryan Brewster, 1985. Yeah, similar story here. Ryan Brewster was unfortunate that he spent 7 years in the Chelsea Academy when the club showed no interest in actually using any of them. If he was instead born 15 years earlier, then yeah, he could have had the same story as Hudson-Odoi and might have actually realized his potential as a 19-year-old striker under Jose Mourinho. Can you imagine this bloke learning from Didier Drogba every single day? There is talent in Brewster. He's not just one of these unfit frauds who belongs cleaning toilets in a bowling alley. No, I reckon he could have done something at Chelsea 20 years ago. Tottenham, Ryan Sessegnon, 1980. Ryan Sessegnon is not a left back. This is a kid who needed to be born 40 years ago, because if he had, he would have been a natural left winger coming through at Fulham under Kevin Keegan in the Championship. Honestly, a fast-paced, exciting coach like Keegan being allowed to mold this lightning-quick, hungry teen forward, he would have been scary to watch. Considering Keegan quickly became England manager, Sessegnon would, at the very least, have been capped a few times. I reckon he'd have had the career of an Ashley Young. West Ham, Konstantinos Mavropanos, 1983. Very simple, this one. If Konstantinos Mavropanos was born in 1983, he would have been 21 years old and playing in the heart of defense for Greece Greece as they somehow lifted Euro 2004. I mean, come on, Greek centre-back Trinos Dilas gotta move to Roma off the back of that. And he was nothing special. That tournament would have shaped Mavropanos' entire career. He'd probably gotta move to Liverpool. Wolves, Mateus Cunha, 1992. I mean, back in the 2014 World Cup, after Diego Costa decided to declare for Spain, Brazil were having to pick Fred up front. Mateus Cunha was 15 years old that summer. Make him a bit older, and yeah, he'd have probably led that line for Brazil for a World Cup on their home turf. For that honor alone, yeah, make him be born in 1992. Anyway, that's what we wanted to get. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What era should your players be born in? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give a like. As always, I'll talk to you in a while.